So for our agenda today, we're going to first go over resumes and CVs and what the difference is. We'll spend a lot of time talking about resume format. We're next going to talk about accomplishment statements, which are the bullet points of the resume. Then we're going to go over cover letters and we'll discuss references, and then we'll have a final review of everything that we covered today. So the first thing is that a resume is a way for you to tell your professional story. So it's a way for you to share your career journey in your own words and to emphasize to the employer or the organization how your qualifications are matching what they're looking for in that position. So we're going to look at the difference between a resume and a CV. So a resume is going to be a summary of your professional journey. So it is a condensed document. We recommend having 1 page per 10 years of experience. Of course, if you are a PhD student or a master's student and you have a lot of research experience, with a professional experience, you can go to 2 pages, but we highly recommend getting all your relevant material to that position in a 1-page document. It should be a concise summary of the information, and you should have an emphasis on your experience and your skills. The most important part of a resume is you want to tailor it to the specific position or program that you're applying to. So you can do this by using keywords, which we're going to describe in detail a little bit later on in the presentation. And your sections of your resume, you should select based on the relevance to the opportunity that you're applying to. So you want to make sure you're keeping it condensed. And if there's any information that isn't relevant to that opportunity, you're going to go ahead and leave it off. Now, a CV is going to be more of the course of your entire life. So this is going to be a 2 or more page document, and it'll grow with you as you gain professional experience. A CV is often used in academia, education, research, or for fellowships and grants. It's going to be a very detailed overview of all the work and accomplishments that you've done over your professional and academic career. It's going to include publications, presentations, research interests, and anything recommended by the industry. A CV doesn't have to be tailored. It's just going to be an overview of everything that you've ever done professionally. But for employment, you are going to be submitting a resume. So we're going to focus on that today. So a resume and a CV are going to be your first impression or your first introduction to who you are as a professional. It should be in an simple, easy to read format. Hiring managers don't spend a lot of time looking at a resume, so you want to make sure it's in a format that they can easily skim over and see your qualifications. You want to make sure that it is a professional document and that it's error-free. Your sections should be ordered by your most relevant experience to the position or by your most recent experience if all of your professional experience is in that same field. And then you want to make sure that you're representing your qualifications for that position. So you always want to make sure that you read the position description carefully so that you are presenting your qualifications accordingly. So we're going to talk about some things we want to avoid on our resume. So being that a resume is a professional document, we want to avoid any unnecessary personal information. So these will include things like your address, your age, your religion, or your marital status. None of that is relevant to who you are as a professional. You'll also want to avoid using a photo. A lot of employers will use applicant tracking systems, so ATS software. And what this is going to do is scan your resume, and it's going to go over formatting and look for keywords. And if there's a photo on there, it's going to make it hard for it to read. If you do want the employer to have more background information about you, you can always include your LinkedIn, which should have a professional photo. You'll want to avoid using any paragraphs or I statements. As I stated previously, the employers are going to quickly scan over your resume, so you want to make sure it's in a bullet point format so that it can easily skim over that information. You'll want to avoid any test scores. You'll want to have your references on a separate document and not on your resume, or it will be in a separate portion of the application portal. And then you'll want to make sure that you remove any experience that is unrelated. So let's say that you are a sustainability major, but you also have work in the health and wellness field. Since the health and wellness field isn't going to relate to, let's say, a sustainability consultant position, you'll want to remove that from your resume and maybe consider having 2 separate resumes, one for sustainability and then one for health and wellness. So here we have a resume template. So this is a downloadable template which was created by the CGF Career Service Department. And you can use this to create a resume in any of our College of Global Futures majors. You can go ahead and scan this QR code. Allison is also going to be posting the link in the chat. And if you'd like, you can use this to build a resume and work on it as we continue the presentation, or you can use it to reference on at a later time. So I'm just going to leave this up for a second for you guys to scan or for you to grab the link from the chat. All right. So next we're going to get into how we should organize our document. So opportunities can arise at any time, so you want to make sure you always have a resume ready. So you want to start your resume with a simple document. You want to avoid any type of fancy templates with boxes or columns, as these are really challenging for you to update and it confuse the applicant tracking software reading systems. You want to list the information that you have, and you want to have your contact information, education, and experiences. So this is an example. This is the downloadable template that we have created for you guys. And as you can see, you'll have contact information at the top. You can have an optional summary. You'll go into your education experience, then any technical skills, your relevant experience, which can include academic projects as well as work experience, and then any additional experience. So this clean black and white horizontal format is going to make sure that you're able to pass the ATS software, and it's going to be really easy for an employer to see and look over. So when you're formatting your document, again, we want to make sure we're not using any general templates. So this would be templates from Microsoft or from Canva. They may look really pretty with the fancy colors, but they're not going to be able to pass the ATS software. And they're also going to be difficult for you to update. And it's going to oftentimes not highlight what we want it to. So that's why we recommend using the template that we provided here. Again, you want to make sure you're using black and white so that you are highlighting your qualifications and that all of the fancy formatting isn't distracting your employer. You want to make sure that it's single spaced. You'll want your margins to be either 1/2 inch or 1 inch. If you need more space on your resume and you're running out of room, we suggest you do 1/2 inch margins. That is going to be what is on the sample that you downloaded today. You want to make sure you're using an easy to read font. Times New Roman or Arial are always great choices. The name should be 14 to 16 point, and that'll be the largest font on your resume. And then you'll want the rest of your resume to be anywhere between 10 and 12 point size font. So we're going to go into the first section. So the first content to list on your resume is your contact information. So you want to be sure to include your first and last name, your phone number that has an appropriate voicemail mailbox so that they'll be able to contact you. And then you'll want to have a professional email address. When in doubt, your ASU email address is always a great one to use. So these are some examples of ways you could format it. So again, the name will be the largest the largest font on the document, and then you'll use as few lines as possible to save space. If you need more space, you can move into the header section of the document. And then if you have less experience, you could always stack the information. So these are some examples of what that could look like. So your first and last name, phone number, professional email, and then it's optional to include your LinkedIn. So here is an example that me and the other advisors have seen before. So this is going to be an incorrect contact information. So if you guys want to go ahead and put in the chat, what are some things you notice about this that are incorrect? Yes. Lulu says no last name. Exactly. And then Eleanor says remove the address. Yes, we want to remove the address. That's just taking up space for relevant information. Yes, unprofessional email from Vanessa. No area code. Yep, they won't be able to contact you. Yep, great. Awesome. Okay. Very good job, everyone. One more thing that I didn't see. Let me just check the chat one more time. Yes, Kelly answered it. So we want to change, and Caroline, we want to change the LinkedIn to be shorter. So when you go onto your LinkedIn profile, you can edit your URL to have it be a shortened version. Great job, everybody. So these are some ways we can improve this. So the next section is going to be your education. So here's an example of the necessary information to include when formatting your education. So you'll want to have your degree in bold, and you'll want to have this spelled out. You don't want to abbreviate this as BS or BA. You'll want to have the entire degree listed. And then you can list any minors or certificates that you have in the program. The graduation date is something that's optional. If you are entry level and you're going to entry level positions, it's great to include on there. If you're more advanced and you're taking a career change and you're wanting to go to an entry level position, then it might not be as relevant. So that's something that is completely up to you. But you will want to have that aligned to the right if you chose to put it. Any honors or certificates are optional to put on there. Your GPA is also optional to put on there. But this is a nice clean formatting and everything that you would want to include in the education section. So the third section is going to be the experience section. So here you're going to want to list the position title in bold. And then you're going to want to list the organization. It's optional, but highly recommended to include the location of this work experience. And then you'll want to include the month and year that you worked at this position, and you'll want to have that aligned to the right. And then below that will be your accomplishment statements or your bullet points. And this is going to be the most important content on your resume. And we'll have more details on accomplishment statements coming up. Okay, so these are some examples of some additional resume sections. So relevant coursework is a great way to showcase your unique background to employers. So if you do not have any professional experience in that industry, right, you do have the professional experience from your coursework, so it's great to highlight this. You can include any community involvement, which talks about the importance of community service, and it shows your commitment to civic engagement. Any professional and student orgs are great to include because it showcases your unique interests and how you've gained different competencies which can be used without your career. Internships serve as professional experience and demonstrate industry skills that you have gained. You can include any research or theses that you have done if they're relevant to the position. Any technical skills, which are the abilities you have acquired through practice and learning from specific tasks. They are skills that can be learned, defined, and measured. You want to avoid any soft skills in this section. Soft skills would be like hard worker or strong communicator. Those will be shown throughout the bullet points in your resume. And then finally, you could add a section for certifications and licensure. So licensing is going to be a mandatory credentialing process established by the state government board. And certifications is a voluntary credentialing process by a non-governmental or a private professional association. So some common ones that might be relevant to positions are a fingerprint clearance card, CPR, first aid, a food handler's card, or a license to practice in a specific field of study. So next, we're going to go into the accomplishment statements. So this is the bullet point section of your resume. So formatting your experience is incredibly important, and we suggest that you use this accomplishment statement format. Accomplishment statements communicate what you have accomplished, the skills you have developed, and the outcome of the project you were responsible for. And they ensure that your professional experience is telling that story that we've been discussing. So before we get into formatting those, we're going to talk about the importance of keywords. So you should be tailoring your resumes with keywords from the job posting of each application you're applying to. So you're going to look at the job description and you're going to pull out those keywords and making sure that those are reflected on their resume so that the employer can see you have the qualifications that they're looking for. So to do this, you can look for frequently used action verbs, or a shortcut to this is you can use a word cloud generator. So on the right, you'll see that image, and that is an example of a word cloud generator. So you can take the job description from the position you're going to be applying to. You'll put it into the word cloud generator, you'll hit enter, and then it's going to make large and bold the words that are used frequently. So I can know from looking at this one, I want to make sure I have manage as some of my keywords. I want to make sure I include reporting. I want to make sure that my resume is focused on sustainability for this specific position. So a word cloud generator is a great way to kind of have a shortcut to tailoring those resumes, especially if you're applying to multiple positions at once. So companies use keywords to sort resumes. So we're going to learn how to beat the odds so your resume moves ahead. So we're going to go ahead and watch a quick video. All right, and if you guys can just let me know, can you guys see the new screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go ahead and watch that.
When you're job searching out of college, you're putting your cover letter and your resume out there, and your chances are it's going to go through some sort of HR search process, or people are just going to read through it and they're going to be looking for keywords that make you seem attractive for that job.
Keywords and resumes just help you stand out amongst others and really help you to be more accessible from a recruiting perspective.
When we're looking at keywords, I would say about 75% of companies or organizations utilize applicant tracking systems. And these are scanning your resume for keywords or phrases. And your resume is only seen by recruiters or hiring managers if your resume has the keywords or phrases that are in there.
You look at the job description and the keywords that are continually highlighted, you put into your cover letter and your resume that you send to that recruiter or to that job.
Put keywords in that are going to help you to look like you've focused on a specific role that you're trying to go after, and truly have the right focus, mindset, mentality, and experience to what the recruiter is looking for that specific role.
For instance, if you're looking for a job in my field, in the nonprofit world, development, fundraising, then you want to make sure that you include that you have fundraising experience. You want to use words like grant writing and networking and philanthropic and words like that, because that's going to cue them into, oh, okay, this person's into the field.
There's a method that I like to use sometimes, and it's using what's called a word cloud generator. You can take the job description, put it inside of the generator, and it's going to bring up a screen full of words. The larger the word, the more often it appears in the job description. The other way is there's a website called jobscan.co. You can actually upload, paste your resume in, copy and paste the job description in, and it does an analysis of your resume against the job description and provides you the keywords that they think are in your resume and that may be missing from your resume.
There are a lot of industries, organizations that will process resumes electronically. And if the resumes do not contain certain keywords that they're looking for, those applicants don't have any chance of even getting in front of or having the option to come to interview.
You got to put time, you got to invest the effort, because that's what's going to set you apart from other people that are just sending that same cover letter across the board.
All right, so hopefully that gave us some more information on keywords. If you guys would like to reference this video at another time, you can go ahead and scan that QR code and it should take you there. I will also paste the link to that video in the chat right now if you would like to bookmark that. All right, that should be in the chat now. So hopefully that gave you a little bit more of an overview of why keywords are so important and how we can use them. Okay, so next we're going to talk about experience. So all accomplishment statements should include an action verb, and then the project or task, and an outcome. And whenever possible, we highly encourage that you use numbers to quantify the outcome. So on this slide, we have a potential experience that doesn't use accomplishment statements. So this is more of just a list of tasks. This is oftentimes what I see when people bring in their resume initially for review. So if you're in a pool of similarly skilled candidates, this isn't going to stand out because many people have done the same tasks. So a list of tasks really doesn't tell the employer a story. Someone who took orders in a quiet setting is going to have a very different experience from someone who took orders in a fast-paced, busy setting. So this is a great start, but it's going to have to be changed to be made into an accomplishment statement. So they have the task of taking coffee orders, ordering supplies, resolving customer service issues, and increase sales through customers, right? We can change that to show much more of a story and have that action verb project result format. So this is what that would look like once it's updated. So we have for example, the first one, which said they took orders, now says they communicated with up to 300 customers during a 4-hour period in a fast-paced environment with successful delivery. So, right, we start with our keyword here, which is our action verb. Then we go into some numbers with something we can quantify, right? 300 customers during a 4-hour period. And then we have the result, which was a successful delivery. So I'm going to give you guys a minute here so that you can look up over the rest of those. But this is going to be an example of what you want your accomplishment statements to look like for a general experience, such as being a barista. All right, and then some things to remember is that accomplishment statements are not copy and pasted from the job description. You need to add results to what you did, really making sure you quantify whenever possible. And you want to showcase your competencies and utilize these keywords and phrases that are found in the job description. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and practice together. So here I have an example of a task that is going to be more related to a CGF major rather than a barista, right? That was just a simple example to kind of get us to wrap our heads around the idea. And now we're going to look at one that's more relevant to the experience that you all may have. So we have they receive funding to reduce energy use. That's great, right? But it doesn't tell us a story and it doesn't give us a lot of information. So what we're first going to want to do is break this down, right? What did this task entail? What did we do to receive this funding? What steps were put into place? How can I expand this task? So we first want to start by selecting that action verb, right? We want to try to use a keyword. So a received is probably not going to be a keyword that we see often, but secured might be. So we'll start there. And let's say the job description is showing secured, so we're going to use that one. Then our next step is to describe the task and quantify if possible. So the task, right, was receiving funding. So how much funding was received? For example, maybe it's $120,000, right? That's going to be a huge difference from just saying you received funding to know how much funding you received. And then finally, we want to talk about what was the result. So what was the result of receiving this funding? Did we give a presentation? And then following this action verb project result is going to give us our new accomplishment statement, which can look something like this. So they secured $120,000 in funding to reduce energy use by 30% by presenting an admissions reduction strategy to the CEO and executive leadership team. So we can see what a huge 360 change that is and how much more of a story this is showing the employer and how they can see how you are much more qualified for the position rather than just saying a general task. So this is the importance of using these accomplishment statements. So next we're going to talk about course projects. So course projects are just as valuable as work experiences. So if you are an undergraduate and you're entering the field and you maybe worked as a hostess throughout your time in college, you can have your academic projects in your coursework to showcase your sustainability experience. Or maybe you're a well-seasoned alumni who was previously working in a different field, and then you're going to be moving into the field of your major. Then you can go ahead and use your academic projects to showcase your experience. So you'll want to include course projects on your resume to showcase this degree experience. And you'll do this the same way that you will on your other professional experience. So you'll have the title of the project, you'll have the university or the organization that you completed the project with, you can put the location, and then you'll want to have the semester and the year that you worked on this project, and then you'll have accomplishment statements below that project. So here's an example of what that section could look like. You'll go ahead and have your education and then have that academic projects in another section below. All right, so the overview of kind of preparing your application, you'll carefully review the job description and the programs and requirements. You'll think about your audience, right? What details of your experience are going to be most relevant or most interesting to the hiring manager? And then ensuring that you're tailoring your documents to highlight those interesting details. So we're going to talk about the hot zone for a few minutes. So the hot zone is the top section of your resume and is one of the most important sections to have correctly formatted and to highlight your skills. So since recruiters spend about 30 seconds looking at your resume, you'll want to make sure that your most relevant experience to the position is going to be in this hot zone. So that is an example of what that could look like. You have your education, and then you have your relevant experience to the position. So if we look, this person has a bachelor's in sustainability. So they're most likely going to be applying to a sustainability position, let's assume. So having an internship is going to be more relevant than their job as a cashier. So we're going to want to have that closer to the top rather than the cashier experience. All right, so we do recommend that if you need help with your resume, you want it reviewed and need help with formatting, you do book an appointment with one of our advisors. So it's myself or Mary. But if you don't have the time or you're working at your resume at like 2 o'clock in your morning and you just found out about this position or this opportunity, ASU has partnered with VMOC, which does give 24/7 resume reviews. So you get instant feedback, it benchmarks with university peers, and it'll give you bullet by bullet feedback on your resume. Again, we do recommend that you have an appointment with us so that you can get that industry specific information to CGF majors. But again, if you just found out about an opportunity and you don't have the time, this is another alternative. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take any resume questions that you have for a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat and see if there's anything I can answer here. Let's see. Does capstone qualify as a course project? Yes, it does. That would be a great thing to include on your resume. So short on experience versus chronological order. Yes, so if you are experience that's more relevant to the position, then you can have a relevant experience section, and that does not have to be in chronological order. And then you can have the rest of your experience in a professional experience section. And Allison posted the link to VMOC. How do I format a job that you got a promotion in? That's a great question. So I would recommend booking an appointment with us so that we can walk you through that. But what you can do is you can have the organization listed, and then you can have the 2 positions directly below that. But I would recommend booking an appointment just so we can walk you through that. Should awards or recognitions be considered if it's a short-term event or experience? Yes, if it is relevant to the position, go ahead and put it on there. Again, you want to make sure that you're staying within kind of that 1-page format. So if it's not as relevant, you can lead it off. Kind of creator's discretion. Count as an internship, or should we talk about that more as class experience? I would say that that's personal to you and kind of what you got out of it. The employer is going to only know the language that you present. So if you felt this was more as an internship and more of a learning experience, you can present it that way. If you felt more it was a class project, then you can present it that way. Remember, it's your career story, so you can tailor that. Then what is the maximum number of pages? I would not recommend going over 2 pages for a resume. You really want it to be a short kind of highlight of your professional experience. I highly recommend doing a 1-page resume. Especially if you're going to be more entry level, you want to stick to 1 page, but 2 pages max. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next section. If you have any other questions or resumes that come up, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will have a final kind of review for questions at the end. Okay, so next we're going to discuss cover letters. So if you want a sample cover letter, you can go ahead and scan this QR code and that'll pull up a sample for you. But a cover letter should be written in a business letter format. You'll want to use the same header header and style of your resume. So kind of that same contact information section at the very top. Your resume should be 3 to 4 paragraphs max, and it should be 1 page or less. Of course, if you're applying to a specific maybe grant or scholarship, it might ask for more, then you'll want to go ahead and follow those guidelines. But in general, 3 to 4 paragraphs, 1 page. So next we're going to kind of go over the basics of setting up a cover letter. So in the opening paragraph, you want to greet the hiring manager with a salutation. So the most common one is to say, "Dear hiring manager." You're going to make sure your cover letter begins with what is often referred to as a hook, kind of an engaging way to introduce yourself. And consider how you want to engage the reader and explain how you're qualified for the job or internship. That'll be the first paragraph. Then in the second paragraph, you want to focus on the employer as much as possible and explain what makes you a good fit for the position and the organization. In the third paragraph, you want to focus specifically on your skills and experiences and what makes you a strong candidate. Highlight your qualifications and what makes you the best fit for this position. And then you're going to end the cover letter with a brief summary of your qualifications, 1 to 2 sentences. And then you want to close with a call to action, which is basically a statement requesting the hiring manager to take action, like, "Thank you for reviewing my application materials. I look forward to hearing from you in the future." So the details. So the first and second paragraph should explain why you're a good fit for the company and position. You want to highlight 1 to 2 experience that you've had that set you apart from other people. This experience could be included on your resume, but it doesn't have to be. If it is, you don't want to copy and paste what's on your resume, but you really want to elaborate the story and add more details to the employer. You can mention why you're qualified and then reiterate these specific skill sets and why they're needed in that position. You can talk about how you benefit the company and what you really bring to the table. And then remember to provide 1 to 2 specific examples. And remember that general examples will not showcase your uniqueness to the employer. So you want to be as specific as possible and really get them to see the story of your career journey. So closing the cover letter. So this paragraph can probably be the same from cover letter to cover letter, and not much is going to change here. So what you want to include, you want to request an opportunity to talk more with them about your qualifications for an interview. You want to give your phone number and your email one last time. Even though it's at the top, it's best practice to go ahead and include it in the final paragraph as well. You want to make sure you're showing gratitude and you're thanking them for their time and their consideration and letting them know you look forward to meeting with them. You want to make sure you're using a professional closing. And remember that this is your last opportunity to really impress the admissions committee or the hiring manager. You can close it with something like "sincerely," include your name at the end. That's going to give you a really professional closing to your cover letter. So again, making sure you're avoiding an abrupt ending, any kind of casual language, and then any type of attention grabbing statements. We really want to make sure that this is a very professional document. So I'll go ahead and take any cover letter questions now. Go ahead and open the chat. All right, it doesn't look like there are any. If you think of any, go ahead and we can go over them again if you want to drop them in the chat. So next we are briefly going to discuss references. So if the employer asks for a reference sheet, you can go ahead and put this on a separate page. Otherwise, references might be a separate section of the online application. So you'll want to make sure that the contact information match your cover letter and resume again, so you can have that same contact information at the top. This is going to create a personal brand as you're submitting all your materials. So the reference page, you should have 3 to 5 references. One can be academic, but you'll mostly want to use professional experience like past supervisors. Of course, if you don't have professional experience, it's okay to just use academic. For each reference, you'll want to list the reference's name, the position, the company, their phone number, and their email address. You'll oftentimes employers will also ask for your relationship to the reference. So you'll want these to be former or current supervisors, maybe a professor or instructor. And you always want to avoid using personal references, which are friends or family. And then whether or not you get accepted to the job, it's always very important to show gratitude to your references. And if you would like to use them again in the future, it's always best practice to kind of follow up with them and let them know if you got the position or not, and then re-expressing that gratitude that they took the time out of their, personal time to write you a professional reference, and a positive one at that. All right, so any questions on references before we go into the final review today? All right, great. So final review, before sending in any materials, you want to complete a final check of your application. It's great to make a checklist. You'll want to double check to make sure you have the proper grammar. Avoid any abbreviations or acronyms. Oftentimes the abbreviation or the acronym will be something that's commonly used in the ASU world, but the employer who's from an outside organization isn't going to know what this means. So that's why we want to make sure that we're writing everything out and we're avoiding these. Again, making sure that we are tailoring those application materials. That is so important. Utilize those keywords from the job description or the application. And it's always best practice to have someone else look at your application materials. So CGF Career Services is perfect for this. You can schedule an appointment with us, and we can always be that second set of eyes to make sure that you're kind of not missing any key information there. So we have created a resource guide for you guys, which contains a lot of the helpful links that we kind of discussed today and can help you to build your resume. So that on the right is a picture of what that looks like. There's the QR code there. I'm also going to be dropping, Allison already put that in the chat for us. All right, thank you, Allison. So you can use that and keep that handy as you're crafting your resume, or anytime you're doing updates. It's always great to come to this to use as a refresher. All right, so finally, we would love for you to meet with us. So we specialize in career advising. We'll give you resume help, job search, interview preparation, internship enrollment, internship search. We have lots of career events. So you can scan this QR code or use the link that Allison posted in the chat. We'd love to meet with you and kind of answer any specific questions that you have to get you career ready, no matter where you are on your professional journey. We do have an upcoming event coming up, which is our next career event. It's the EPA application workshop. So you'll receive an overview of the federal hiring process, and it'll also go over how to build a federal resume, which is going to be quite different from the general employment resumes that we covered today. This is going to be Wednesday, February 21st at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And Allison did put that link in the chat. And then you can scan that QR code or access the link in the chat to make an appointment with us. So thank you guys so much for attending.